I toil day by day, planting seeds in the soil, hoping they'll find their way. With the rusty old tractor and the trusty old mule, I keep this place running, trying to play it cool. I'm maintaining my half-ass homestead where the bluegrass grows, working the land with my hands, that's how it goes. Though it ain't fancy, it's the life for me, living off the land, happy and free. On my half-ass homestead, I toil day by day, planting seeds in the soil, hoping they'll find their way. With the rusty old tractor and the trusty old mule, I keep this place running, trying to play it cool. I'm maintaining my half-ass homestead where the bluegrass grows, working the land with my hands, that's how it goes.
Alrighty then, we are here. I had to play a little background music till I got somebody to come in and join. Please introduce yourself. It's been an interesting week. Actually, last weekend till this week has been pretty interesting. First off, I got my ears lowered. Did a little shaving since I was on Brian's live because Bowen, Mr. Thunderstick, got me into this. I was like pulling down on the beard with him, and I was like, "Yeah, that's not a good picture to put out for people." Thanks, Bowen. And it wasn't just Bowen. Bowen started doing it. Brian started doing it, and then I started doing it. I was like, "All right, well, let's stop doing that. We don't need to pet ourselves." So, last weekend, we had two options actually for last weekend. The first one was we were supposed to go to Florida to visit with Leah's sister and her husband. I've never met her husband, Mark, but we didn't go because she couldn't get time off from work. She works for Amazon, and being a holiday weekend, they would not let her take any time off from work. And I was like, "Oh, that's fine. I don't care. It's your option, you know. I mean, if you don't want us to come down right now, that's fine. We'll pick another date or whatever." And I really couldn't afford it anyway, so that's fine with me. But the other one was to go camping, and that didn't work out either. We were going to go camping, and we were going to take one of my old coworkers with me, or with us, and his wife, and we all just said, "No, the weather's going to be nasty. We're not going to do it." Well, the weather didn't turn out to be super nasty. But another friend of mine, my old landlord's wife, was having a birthday party. So I said, "Well, you know, we're not camping. We're not in Florida. I want to go to that birthday party and just kind of hang out for a couple hours, come back home." And it was supposed to rain all day. It was supposed to be really, really nasty. It sprinkled for maybe 10 minutes on my way there, and it didn't rain at all. From the time I left my house, after I was probably 5 miles from home, it started sprinkling. It didn't last. And I think it was probably 2-3 miles down the road and it quit. And it was a nice day, actually. It turned out to be a really nice day. So I ended up going to that instead. I would have much rather have gone camping because it would have been the last time of the year. And now with our temperatures and stuff, I really wish we would have done it, because right now in New York, where I'm at, it's 54 degrees outside. I got a flannel shirt on. Why do I got a flannel shirt on? Well, we had to go outside and play tonight for a little bit. Mama Chicken actually had a baby. Hi, Charlene. How we doing? Mama Chicken actually had a baby, and she's been doing wonderful with the baby as far as taking it around and the run and teaching it different things and whatnot. But what Mama couldn't do is teach it to go back up the ramp to get back into the coop at night. It's gotten out quite a few times. Last night it got out, and it ended up in the woods. And I gave up. I was like, "I'm not going to go look for this chicken anymore, Leah. I mean, it's impossible. It's too thick. I'm not going to go in there and try to find this chicken in the dense area and stuff." And Leah found out that you can, on YouTube, there's one with Mama gently calling her children. And Leah pulled that up as something on her phone, and that chicken came out of the woods and walked right up to her. And she came in and she says, I got the chicken. I got the chicken. I was like, all right, cool. I'll walk out with you and we'll put it back in the coop. And so we did that. It was not really dark yet, but it was getting dark and it was starting to cool off quite a bit. And in the coop, I've got the brooder heater on the wall, mounted on a wall. So if it wanted to get warm and Mama wasn't available, then it could go over there next to the heater and lay down, and it would be fine. My other three, my little man, my rooster, and my other two chickens, and they don't lay eggs, and one of them is really big. I think that one's ready for the fryer. Uh, they sleep on the roof of the coop. They don't go in the coop. They sleep on the roof of the coop. I mean, they got a nice nesting bar in there and stuff and all that stuff, but they don't go in the coop. They sleep on the roof line, and they've done it since I brought them home. So I'm like, okay, well, that's kind of weird. Hey, Julia, how you doing? You're not late. We just got started. So tonight, no sign of the little one. No chirping, no nothing. And I'm like, I don't know. You know, I closed up the escape hatches that we found that it was using to get out of the coop. That actually turned out to be chipmunk holes where the chipmunks were going in to eat the chicken food. And of course, chickens don't care. Hey, you want to come in and help us eat? Come on in. So the night we're out there and we're looking around and we're listening, and she ran that YouTube video again on her phone for quite a while, and no chirps, no nothing. And we're looking around. Of course, we're out there with flashlights. We get these LED long lights. We're out there with them and we're shining it around and we're looking and we're looking and we're looking. And I'm like, there's no way for this chicken to get out of this coop. I think it finally figured out a way to get back up into the coop. And hopefully, I'm not swearing by it, but hopefully it's underneath Mama. I opened up the backside where you check for eggs or whatever. Of course, Mama don't like me at all. When I reach in with my hand to put food into the feeder in there, she'll run out of that coop quicker than crap. She didn't tonight, and I was like, all right, well, that's kind of weird. So I raised up the backside and I'm looking in. There's some black feathers sticking up in front of Mama. Now Mama's a white and gray speckled chicken, and I'm like, well, maybe it's over there under Mama. I'm not going to pick Mama up to find out. I mean, Mama doesn't like me already anyway. I keep stealing all of her eggs. So I'm hoping that was the new chicken underneath Mama with its tail feathers sticking up. That's what I'm hoping anyway. I'll find out tomorrow. If it did find a way back up the ramp, that would be awesome. Because the ramp's not real steep. It's actually quite long. And, I mean, I could walk up it, and I can't walk up and down hills. So it's pretty easy to get in and out of for them. But I was like, all right, whatever. Yeah, I hope so too, Julia. I'll find out tomorrow. When the sun comes up and they're out. And, of course, I got to go out and coax Mama out. But she's been doing really good. She's been walking around the coop and following the baby, and the baby's been following her. So I'm kind of hoping I still got the baby. I don't know. I'll find out. Last night I was ready to write it off as well. We lost that one. Once it got into the thicket of the trees and everything, where it's all like briars and weeds and all that kind of stuff, I wrote it off last night until she came up probably 20 minutes later and handed me the baby chick. And I'm like, are you serious? That's too cool. Of course, while we're out there, we know the baby's out, and I found the chipmunk hole, so I plugged off the chipmunk hole to make it so that even the chipmunks can't use it anymore. And I'm like, all right, well, that's a good sign there. We know it's not going out that hole anymore. It's kind of weird. I figured out how to go through that hole, turn around, and not know enough to go back through the same hole to get back into the coop. It would run around the coop, chirping all the time, but it wouldn't go back through the same hole it came out of. Of course, it's a bird brain. But yeah, so that's been our latest chase around here. I have decided that we can't afford to bring back my employee who is a tradesman, because the seed business isn't doing really well, and so I can't afford to pay him to come back and work for me right now. But I am going to work on my upper stairway over here. I was actually just talking to, I don't remember who it was now. They follow my channel anyway. And I'm going to go in, and because the stairs are really odd as far as starting at the bottom and ending at the top anyway, I'm going to cut the bowl nose off all the front of the stairs. That'll be a chore. I can do some of it with, like, I've got a what they call a toe saw, so I can mark it off on the front of the stair, run the toe saw, and that'll leave about 1.5 inches on each side of the stair that needs to be cut off with, like, the multi-tool or whatever. So that's my game plan, is, work at it day by day and just slowly cut the bull nose off all the front of the stairs. And then when that's all done from bottom to top, then I'm going to go out to my wood shop. I've got a whole, I think it's like a 15-foot U-Haul trailer full of cherry rough cut lumber. So I'm going to go through there and I'm going to sort out the boards and figure out which ones I want to use, take them into the shop, figure out what my length is going to be for all of them, and start cutting the boards down to length. And then once they're cut down to length, I'm going to run them through the planer and get them all down to the same thickness, because, being rough cut, they're never the same thickness. But I want to run the planer outside. It's noisy. It makes a heck of a mess. No matter what you do with the planer, people say, well, just hook your dust collector to it. Yeah, it doesn't work that way. I've got a really good dust collection system, but it doesn't work that way with a planer. Kind of like a joiner. My joiner throws all the chips underneath it, so even if I can find a way to connect a dust collection to it, it would have to be from the bottom side, sucking the chips down. And if you're running something across the joiner, you don't want something pulling down on the board as it's running across, because then you're not going to get a straight edge. So my thinking is that I'm going to just cut them off to length, put my planer outside, probably set up a canopy or something so I'm, out of the weather. I do have a canopy that has 4 sides on it. Run them through there and get them all down to the same width or same thickness, and then take them back into the wood shop and set up my table saw to take them all down to the same width, because, being rough cut boards, they're all different. And then once that's done, then I'm going to run them through my router table and give them a rounded off top. I'm not going to worry about getting a rounded off bottom, because you never step on the bottom of the step anyway, you know what I mean? So I'm going to do like a 1/4 inch round over on all of them. So it'd be like if you were buying a 2x4, it'd be about that same round over. And then once that's done, then I'm going to run them through I got a wide belt sander. I'm going to run them through that to do the final finish sanding basically on all of them, I think, hopefully. If I can do it on that, that means I don't have to hand sand them myself, and I'd really prefer not to. And to be honest with you, I don't want to hand sand them anyway, because I don't want my stairs to be really, really super smooth, because then they'll become super slippery. So my thinking is the belt sander will work fine for that. If it leaves little grooves in it, that's not going to hurt my feelings any. But then after all that's done, I have to set up a stain station, because I'm going to, being cherry wood, it's got a little bit of a red color to it. But I'm kind of leaning towards, I want to use like a mahogany stain on it to really bring the red out of the cherry. And so I'm going to run them through a stain process as well, which means, pre-stain, give them a quick sand down to get rid of all the raised fibers, and then go ahead and put them in place. Once it's all done, I'm going to urethane them. I've got par urethane. It's a water base. I'm going to use that as the finish on them. I've done it on a couple sets of stairs I built before, and it works really, really well. It's not slippery. It actually is. I don't even know what you'd call it. If you tried sliding on it with your socks on, it would pull your socks so tight you wouldn't be able to wear them anymore. Which I think for stairs, that's an awesome finish. So that's my game plan anyway. And after I put all the stairs in, which are going to go right on top of the ones that I have, they'll all be glued and nailed down and a chance to dry. Then I got to go through and I got to do the same thing for all the risers in front of them. So it's going to be a bit of a chore. After that's all done, I've got one wall that I'm not sure what I'm going to do with yet, because when the wall comes up, it stops, and then it goes and lays over about 1.5 inches, 2 inches back to another wall. That wall is painted. So I'm thinking I'm probably going to use a piece of cherry for the top of that all the way around. But the wall below it, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that yet. I could do it with cherry, but I don't want to do it with cherry because it's just too much work. It's not because I don't want to waste the cherry wood. It's just because the amount of work that's invested into it. I'd have to go through and resaw all the boards to make them thinner and then run them through the planer and run them through the sander and then the table saw and then glue them and nail them. And it's a lot of work. It's been a lot of work. The whole process we've gone through so far on this whole upper hallway has been a lot of work. I was going to go through and do like Come On Mountain did with the burnt wood for the wood trim. And I decided I'm not going to do that now. I'm going to just paint everything bright white, semi-gloss for all the boards, all the trim, all that stuff on the top half. On the bottom half, I don't want to do that. I'm actually thinking I might, for the bottom half, do it with like a tongue and groove like you'd use for wainscoting or whatever. And for that, I'm thinking I might paint that the same color, smoke gray. I'm going to paint the upper walls so it gives it a nice contrast between all of it. I think it would look really nice, but I'm not positive how it's going to work. Unfortunately for my tradesman, when he put the boards up, it was all, I'm a particular person when it comes to doing stuff. When he put we used Luan instead of sheetrock on the walls because it's all wide plank walling with like maybe a half an inch between each plank going down the wall. I told him, I said, I'm not going to sheetrock that. I don't want to have to climb over the stairs to get up to the ceiling to be able to sand it and do all that stuff. And I just didn't want sheetrock there. Because my thinking is people come here, they're going to be moving stuff up and down the stairs. Sheetrock gets damaged really easy. Real wood doesn't. But I'm kind of thinking that, I forget where I was going with it. But anyway, it's all Luan. Oh, I know it was. I bought an air stapler to staple the Luan to the planks. And we made sure that every 4 feet there was a big plank in the middle of that board going to the next board so that they had good solid surfaces to be on. And for the life of me, I don't know why, but somewhere in his mind, he decided there was one piece 4 foot wide that rather than going around the outside edges of it and just calling it good enough, he dropped in like 5 or 6 staples in the center of it. So now I got to figure out what I'm going to do with that. I'm actually thinking I might use like just regular wood putty and put it in so that it's going across the grain of the Luan. So where the Luan goes like in and out, it'll do the same. So it doesn't look like it's a patch job in that area or whatever. And of course I'll have to sand it down a little bit or whatever, but I don't know. We'll figure it out when we get there. I have to do that before I do the next coat of paint because I've already got the primer on the wood. That's when I realized there were staples in the wrong areas. But I'll get that part figured out. Once that's all done, hopefully the seed business picks up really well because I have to bring him back to redo the railing and the balusters and everything. At auction, I bought these really nice wrought iron balusters that are all 44 inches long right now. I've got a power bandsaw to cut things off with, but the railing that's there now is too low. It has to be brought up to legal height. And then as it goes towards the room where my print shop is, the railing has to go up at an angle because if I walk out of my print room and I'm not paying attention to what I'm doing, there's a step down. I'm going to say it's almost a foot down. Well, that railing is already too low to begin with. And if another foot higher, if you misstep coming out of that room, you're going over the top of the railing and you're going to end up at the bottom of the stairs. That's a long ways to drop. So I need to bring him back because he's got it in his mind how we were going to do it. And I need to have him back for that part. And then also for where I'm going to put the other wood at the bottom of that, where that overlay piece is. I'm going to go in and I'm going to take cherry and make a handrail. But because I have that overlay piece in there, the bottom of the handrail has to be so many inches off the wall, so you got lots of room for your fingers. But then when it goes back, I have to make that board wider and figure out how am I going to get the screw from point A to point B to be able to get into that and then be able to mount the actual handrail onto it. The handrail is going to be just like a 1.5 by 4, maybe, or 5. I'm not sure, but it's going to be done in cherry as well. And get the same finishing works on it and all that stuff. But I want it to go up, and I want it to turn the corner and come back a little bit. That way, when you're going down the stairs, you've always got something to hang on to. Right now, there's nothing. I had a handrail there, and when I shattered my heel, I was going up and down the stairs on crutches. Actually, I wasn't going down on crutches. I was throwing the crutches down the stairs and going down on my butt. Because I didn't trust the handrail to hold me. There weren't enough of those, I don't know what they are, but it's like the handrail clips. It mounts like this under the bottom of the handrail, and then it mounts to the wall. And it holds the handrail out, and it keeps it from bouncing. Well, there was only 3 of them on I think it was a 16-foot run. And I didn't trust that handrail for between the brackets to hold my weight going downstairs. And I reached out to a friend of mine. I said, hey, if you can come over and take care of this, I would do it. That would be great. And he said, yeah, I'll be over. Well, it's 2 years later. I don't even have the handrail up anymore because I've been working in that area. And he hasn't been here. He hasn't been here at all. So I'm just saying, okay, well, I'm going to figure it out on my own. And I'm going to use solid handrails, where it's mounted all the way up the wall. No worrying about those brackets and spaces between them. It'll be solid right to the wall from bottom to top, because I want it to be able to support weight. So that's one of my projects I'm going to be working on, and hopefully sooner than later, because, like I said, it's 54 degrees out right now. It's getting warmer during the daytime. It's not hot. Today, we started out at about 54 degrees. And I think we got to a high of about 67 or 68. So it was like start out with a jacket, and it was raining too this morning. So like start out with a jacket on. We did our regular thing, I had to go get my mom some corn, and then we went to a Dollar General store or Real Deal Dollar or whatever it was, because I was looking for cinnamon candies, and I need cinnamon candies. I'm actually working on trying to quit smoking here very, very, very shortly. And the lady from Caswell Park Cancer Institute told me that when you have a craving for a cigarette, put a piece of cinnamon candy in your mouth. Something about cinnamon, even though you got the sugars in it and stuff, will dry your mouth out and take away the craving for a cigarette. So I went to Walmart. And I looked at Walmart, and the only thing Walmart had were hot tamales. Well, I opened the bag and I tried a couple. First of all, hot tamales have 0 cinnamon in them. Absolutely no cinnamon. And she said cinnamon specifically. I'm reading the package, and it's like, oh, you got all these different kinds of acids in here. That's what's giving it the bite. But there's absolutely 0 cinnamon in a hot tamale. So I wanted the cinnamon discs, because I know they're made with real cinnamon. So we went to the dollar store. We found them. So I grabbed 3 bags. So I got probably 300 of them available. I've got the patches, and I've got the gum for step 3, which is the most potent ones you can get. And when I was talking to the lady on the phone, I said to her, I said, well, you sent me the patches and you sent me the gum. I mean, do I do one or the other, or how does that work? And she says, oh, no. Oh, I like lemon heads, Julia. Trust me, I like lemon heads. I'm also a big cherry fan, too. But she says, oh, no. This is done in companionship. You put the patch on, the patch is good for 24 hours. The gum is only good for about 2. You chew the gum until you start getting the tingling feeling into your mouth, and then you pop it between your gum and you just leave it there. When you get ready to smoke a cigarette, pop it back out, chew on it a little bit more, and put it back in your cheek again. She says, that's good for about 2 hours, and then you have to go to another piece of gum. I was like, all right, well, that's cool. I'm glad you're helping me. It's going to be hard. I've done it before. I've done it many times. Actually, I did it when I went in the Army. And actually, when I went into the Army, I went in the Army with a carton of cigarettes, not knowing any better, and they confiscated them. I'd never see them again. And after I did my basic training and I went through AIT and I graduated, my parents came down to celebrate the graduation because we had a big ceremony for it. And the first thing that come out of my mouth when I got in their vehicle is, who's got a cigarette? I'm hoping I'm not. Actually, I'm hoping I'm not allergic to the glue that they use on the patches, because that's been an issue for me for a long time. There's only certain Band-Aids I can use that don't give me a rash. And I'm hoping these patches don't have whatever glue that was used on that kind of stuff on me, because if it does, patches aren't going to work. And then they'll have to go to something different. I don't know. But anyway, so I quit smoking in the Army for, God, I think it was like 7 months, 8 months, something like that. If you got caught smoking in the Army, you were automatically Article 135 and your destruction of government property, and that was very expensive. Even if you got caught with just matches or a lighter, you could get that. So I was smart. I stayed away. In AIT, it was a little bit different story, because in AIT, if you have cigarettes, you can smoke them, but there wasn't any place on base where you could buy them. So you'd have to go off base, get a weekend pass, go find a place to sell cigarettes that you can afford, buy them, and then bring them back on base, and everything was fine. But you weren't allowed to share them. You weren't allowed to sell them to anybody else. You only could go out and buy your own and bring them back. I did that towards the end. But I was just like, quitting smoking. I don't know if anybody here has ever had to go through it, but quitting smoking is actually very, very hard to do, especially if you have friends who smoke. I have a really, really good friend that smokes a lot. And I actually told him when I was at his wife's birthday party here last weekend that you probably won't see me over here as much. And he's like, why? I said, well, because I want to try to quit smoking here. I think I got cigarettes to last me about a week and a half. And then after that, it's cold turkey. I'm going over to the patches, going over to the gum, going to the cinnamon drops, and I'm going to try to quit because I know I need to. I can't afford not to. It's not that I pay a lot of money for cigarettes. I buy them on an Indian reservation. They cost me $100 a month for 5 cartons. So it's $20 a carton. I mean, that's $2 a pack. That's cheap. But for the health-wise, I have to quit smoking. Yeah, Julia, honey, I hear you. I got a pack right here in front of me, and I got another carton in the drawer right here beside me. So, yeah, I hear you. I'm doing good as far as like when I get up in the morning and have my coffee and stuff, not just reaching over and grabbing a cigarette first thing. I'm kind of almost up to an hour right now most days, where I will do my best not to light a cigarette for like the first hour after I get up in the morning, give myself a chance to breathe a little bit and whatnot. But another big issue for me is drinking water. My nurse that I had when I had a home nurse here at the house for 7-8 weeks. Yeah, COPD. That's exactly what I'm talking about. I only get hints of it every once in a while. But another thing that I get hints of really bad is lack of blood flow. My fingers will go numb and all that. And I have special pills that I take to keep the blood flow going. And I swear by these, if anybody has never used them before, this is from a company called Vinia. And it's red grape powder. They work really good. And another one is from a company called Human, which is, they have a pomegranate beet chew that increases your blood flow. And those are really good too. I was actually hooked on them for a long time, but Vinea was a heck of a lot cheaper. And so I switched over. I mean, I got like 5 bottles of Vinea for one bag of beet chew from Human, so I don't do them anymore. Yeah, that's what I got to shoot against, Julia. I don't want cancer. I'm not going to say I'm not going to get cancer. Heck, you can get cancer from eating a hot dog. But anyway, what I was saying is my home nurse was telling me that, hey, dude, you need to start drinking water. You are totally dehydrated. And so I reached out. I mean, I reached out to a lot of people and I talked to a lot of people. But I reached out to a really good friend of mine and I was like, hey, you keep advertising liquid IV. What is liquid IV? And he says, oh, it's just like a electrolyte package. You pour it into your water and they have all these different flavors and stuff. They can send you a trial pack, and I'll give you the code where you can pay like $10 for the trial pack. So I did it, and turns out I actually like it. You know, if I go to the store and I buy Propel water, which I do like some of them, I don't like the watermelon. I've tried it many different times a day, and to me it just tastes like a chemical. But the strawberry kiwi is really, really good, so I like that one. And there's a couple others in there that I enjoy. I don't like grape, but this liquid IV, I've got, I don't know, 6 different flavors in one bag, and I've been slowly going through them. And for those, you just go buy a regular case of water. Well, the price of that case of water and the price of that bag of liquid IV is a heck of a lot cheaper than one 12-pack of Propel. So I've sworn on that one. I just actually reached out to Liquid IV again and said, hey, all right, now can I order special flavors? Because some of them I like better than others. And they're like, oh, yeah, absolutely. I put in an order for $75 last week of the flavors I like, of Liquid IV and flavors I wanted to try. And it's like, I think it's 12 or 15 packages of each flavor. And I think I ordered 10 of each or something like that. I don't know. It was a lot. So I'll have to buy like 30 cases of water. But water's cheap, you know. Actually, water's really cheap. Our coffee maker uses 5-gallon water jugs. And our local store sells them full for $8 a piece. I bought 4. No, actually, I bought 6. I bought 6 of them water jugs right straight out. And I was just taking them down when they got empty and exchanging them for full ones. Well, that was starting to add up pretty good in the cost, especially with my employees drinking it and everybody else. And I was like, enough is enough. My car gets 40 miles per gallon. I can take a 10-minute drive from my house, or not 10-minute drive, it's closer to about a 20-minute drive from my house to the town of Lisle, New York, which has a natural spring. And some pump company found the spring, they piped it all the way down to the road, put in a nice pull-off area where you can go there and fill your water jugs up for free, just as an advertisement for their pump company. So I just drive over there and fill up water jugs. I can fill up 4 of them in about 5 minutes, so it's not a big deal. Wow. You know, I was just talking to Atasha, and she was just diagnosed with breast cancer. Natasha Dauber. And she's going in for an operation in December, so I feel bad for her. Leah had to go through all that, and of course they did the mastectomy, and now she's walking around with just one. And when they wanted to do the operation to do the rebuild of the one missing, they found out she was smoking, and they told her, if you're smoking, we're not doing it. She quit. Right then and there, she quit. Same day. She walked out of the doctor's office and never smoked another cigarette afterwards. She wanted that operation done. That was, I don't know, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, probably 3 years ago. And to this day, nothing's been done. Nothing. It's like, yeah, okay, whatever. It's not happening anymore. Yeah, natural spring water actually has a lot of minerals in it, but what it doesn't have is like lime and rust and all the things that are really bad for you and whatnot. I mean, I imagine it probably does have a little bit of lime because it has to come up through limestone or whatever, so it does pick up a little bit of lime, but not as nearly as much as we get from our well. I had our well water tested, and when the guy came out, he's like, "Well, what are you doing for it now?" And I was like, "Well, I got a sediment filter in the basement." He says, "How often do you change it?" And I says, "When I lose water pressure." He says, "All right, well, you need to change those like every 60 days, I think he said. I got to change it tomorrow. It's to the point where I don't have any water pressure again. Once it gets to that point, I guess some things will bypass the filter and carry on in throughout the rest of the system. But after we got done, he said, "All right, well, we're going to do some water tests here." And he's walking me through all these tests. And of course, I'm asking him all kinds of questions, hardness level, pH levels, how much lime, how much rust, how much this, how much that. And when we got all done, he said, "I'm going to take a glass of water and I'm going to run one last test." I don't know what this thing was, but it looked like a big pen. He pulled it out of his case. He put it in that glass of water and just let it sit there for about a minute. He pulled it back out and it read 344. And he's like, "Dude, don't drink this water." And I was like, "We don't. We cook with it, we wash with it, but we don't drink it." And he's like, "I wouldn't even cook with it." He says, "See this number right here?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he says, "That's parts per million of contaminants in your water system." Oh, but he quoted me $4,500 for a water filtration system. And I'm like, "Dude, I'm not giving you $4,500 for that right now. I can't afford it, you know? So I think what I'm going to do, most people, maybe everybody up here, I don't know, most people have heard of Culligan. I'm going to call my local Culligan dealer and have him come out and do a water test. And I can rent their equipment. I don't need to spend $4,500 to buy it. And then they have to come out and have to service it, which is more of what I would rather have done anyway. The one that I was going to get from this other water company, it was just going to be, you buy it, they hook it up, and then you're on your own. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to be doing it like that. It wasn't a water softener by any means because it only used, hey, Lynn, how we doing? It wasn't a water softener by any means because it only used one bag of salt like every 6 months. For a water softener, at my job, of course, we went through, probably 1,000,000 gallons of water a month. We were going through 6 bags of salt every 12 hours. So that was my thinking of a water softener. Man, you're going to go through an awful lot of rock salt. Rock salt gets expensive if you got to buy it in bulk. I mean, we're talking buy it by the pallet. And I was like, yeah, no, I don't want to go through that. But he's like, no, it takes like one bag every 6 months. And I was like, all right, well, that's not so bad. It's like $6-7 for a bag of rock salt where I live. They use it on the road, so it's not that expensive. We actually got a local mine, so I can just go to the mine and buy it. It's probably cheaper there. But I was just like, yeah, I don't want a water softener because a water softener doesn't take out all the impurities. And the impurities is the part I wanted to eliminate. So I'm going to get a hold of Culligan and I'm going to find out what they say about it. And I'm going to go from there and say, hey, I know you rent systems rather than just sell them. So I'd rather rent one and have you be responsible for it than me buy one and have me worry about having to do the maintenance on it. It just makes sense. Wow. I have this program on my computer called CCleaner. It's a free program that helps speed your computer up and get rid of junk files and all kinds of stuff like that. I've gotten about 7 notices from it today. That's worse than YouTube commercials, which I don't get anymore. I found a workaround on that. If you guys don't know, you don't have to watch commercials on YouTube. That's why I support all the channels I watch. I either make money donations or I join them as a member or whatever. I found the Brave browser, and Brave will not let any commercial come up on YouTube at all, period. You never see another annoying commercial on YouTube. I've seen them pop up on lives. I've seen them pop up before you can watch. Hi, Arlene. I've seen them pop up anywhere where something's going on. And I'm like, there was a live the other day I was on. There was like 3 different commercials that popped up on it. And I was like, I used the Brave browser. You won't get the commercials if you use this browser. I'm not promoting the browser, but I'm saying, I promote the channels, or I support the channels that I like. That's my way of doing it rather than having to watch the commercials, because commercials to me, I mean, that's why I don't watch regular TV. I don't like commercials. Fox News is probably the worst one. Fox News has the same 3 commercials play every single break. Every single break. Yeah, actually, Julia, we have a local lab that will test water. But what I was told is that before they'll test your water, first of all, I have to change that filter, which I'm going to do in the morning. Then you have to run the water for, I think it's 5 minutes of running water before you fill up their test tube with it. Cap off the test tube, dry the test tube off, make sure it's totally dry. Fill out the sticker with your name and your address and phone number and all that stuff, and then put that onto the test tube. And then you take the test tube back to them, and within 3 weeks, they'll give you the answer of what your water has in it and exactly how many parts per million and all that stuff. And I'm kind of leaning towards I want to do that anyway, even if I can get Colligan out here just to make sure that I'm not being lied to. That last guy, I'm not too sure he was telling me all the truth. So, and when you want $4,500 out of me after visiting with me for 20 minutes, that's a hard pill to swallow. I'm not really good into that one. So I don't know. I'm gonna do my best to get the best water I can get, and if it means I just keep going to the spring and filling up water jugs for what I drink every day and whatnot, so be it. I don't care. It doesn't hurt my feelings. I can buy water at Walmart. It's probably filtered better than the water I get out of my house. I'm not gonna say it is. I'm just saying it probably is. I can guarantee it's not as good as the spring water we get right fresh out of the pipe from the spring. But yeah, well, that's the thing, Julia. It's like a lot of places have really really bad water. Our old place where we were at over in McLean, that water got so bad that I went out and I bought what they call the reverse osmosis system, just so we could run water to drink in our house, because it was E. coli and all kinds of crap in that water. The landlord was dumb. He had a pond out back with it outrun off the pond, and he killed a cow or a deer or something and put it into a half tub, pulled it out there, and as it rained, it filled that tub up and overflowed and into there. Well, that was the water that was feeding our trailer and feeding their house as well. They actually ended up having to go out and buy a reverse osmosis too. But it got so bad that our sediment filter got filled up within a week, maybe. And I kept going over and going, Roger, there's something wrong with the well, man. There's something wrong with the well. And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, I see it first because it comes to the trailer before it goes to your house. My sediment filter is full every week. I have to change the filter every week. And he's like, well, we never have to change ours. And I says, I know, because I'm changing mine. Duh. Well, it turned out that the wall had collapsed. And it got to the point where we couldn't even draw water out of the wall anymore. And when that happened, he had to go out and he had to hire a well company to come in and drill a new well. Well, he hired friends of mine to do it. And I was like, good. I went out and, hey, Skippy, how we doing? He's like, hey, Dave, how you doing? I said, good. I said, I hear you guys are going to be here doing the well. And he's like, yes, we are. I said, all right. Every time you hit water, I want you to do a water test. And he said, what we tested for us? Everything. E. coli, chlorine, whatever you can imagine. This is old farmland, man. Test it for everything. So they drilled the well. they went down, I think it was 75 feet. They hit water. Tested. They tested it. The guy that tested the water came back over and he says, all right, well, these are my results. I said, that ain't good enough. Keep going. And they went down like another 15 feet. Hit water again. Okay, test it. He tested it. He brought me his results. And I says, no, it's not good enough. Keep going. My landlord was so pissed at me. He came over and he says, you're costing me fucking money. And I was like, no, actually, I'm not. These guys that are working here right now, these are all friends of mine. The only thing that's costing you right now is the cost of the pipe they're putting in the ground for the casing. That's the only money it's costing you. Their time is on me right now. And they're going to keep drilling until we get to really good water. And I don't care if they go down 150 feet. And he's like, well, Jesus Christ, that's a lot of money. And I was like, no, it's not. I'm telling you, man, you're only paying for the pipe. That's all it is. You're paying for the pipe. These guys are helping me. And they went down to almost 120 feet before they hit really super, super clean spring water. And it was a gusher. I mean, that water was coming up out of the pipe so fast that it flushed all of the sediment out from all the other drill spots that they had and everything. And we're talking probably an extra 60 gallons a minute coming out of this well that we were never going to use, to the point where we had to drop a 360 gallon a minute pump down into the well, a sump pump, to be able to pump the excess water out, just so they could go in and drill a hole in the side of that pipe for one, to run the line out to the pump house, and for two, to run an overflow out into the field out back that went to the creek. And while they were drilling the holes and welding the pieces in and everything else, I jumped on the running backhoe we had there, and I dug the ditch from the backhoe to go all the way down to that creek out back. We ran I think it's PVC line or whatever, black plastic, might be ABS, but we ran that all the way down to the creek and then covered it back up again. So it was, there was your yard. I dug it up. Okay, your yard is back. Life goes on, grass will grow back. And there was as much water going into that creek as we had going into the houses with the faucets wide open. And we didn't need to use sediment filters anymore. We didn't need to use our little filtration systems anymore. It was just good, clean, pure freaking water. And after about a month of it running, I actually went and I did that water test, and I took it down to the local lab, and I said, hey, I need you to test this water for me. And they're like, well, did you do this? Did you do? Yeah, I know your rules. I mean, our factory takes tests to them all the time, so I know the rules. It's not a big issue. And they're like, oh, okay, well, you work there. Yeah, okay, we know you got it. Okay. So they tested the water, and it was about 2 or 3 weeks later, I got a call from them, and I went down, and they gave me the results. 0 iron, 0 lime, 0 E. coli, 0 chlorine, 0 arsenic, and 0 every other contaminant you could probably think of. The only thing that they were coming up with was, in my sample of water, there was 1/2 particle of sand that they found. And they said, well, you're probably going to want to keep your sediment filter in place. And I was like, all right, that's fair enough. We lived there 2 years after that and never once changed that filter. Never once had need to. That filter never changed color. It never did anything. It just slowly built sand up into it. But it was probably a quarter full when we moved out. So that was awesome. I'd do it again here, but I don't have room to drill another well. I don't know how deep the well is here, and I know nothing about it other than this is an old farm. And because it's an old farm and you had cattle, it's probably got some E. coli in it and some other stuff. I don't know, but I'm not playing with it. All right, so now we'll skip back to my truck. Another reason why we haven't camped all year long. My truck is still in the shop. As I said before, he went through, he changed all the lifters that were bad, and he had a special part made for the exhaust system because it was cheaper to have it fabricated than it was to buy it by like, $800 or more. And he did all that, test drove it, found out, One of the lifters was bad again. And so now he's tearing it all down again, and he's redoing all the lifters. I told him, take the bad one, put it aside in the trash can or whatever, take the rest of them, put it in a box, throw it in the back of the truck. I don't want to throw them away because, we know those were working anyway right now. So it makes no sense to throw them all away. Just in case we got another bad one in this batch. Pop another one of those in, and it's not so bad. But he said to me, he says, I'm going to do one more thing before I do anything else. And I was like, what's that? And he says, I'm going to test your oil pressure. Manually test your oil pressure. Because if your oil pressure is bad in the truck, that will not push the lifter back up to where it needs to be. And that's my fear. Good. Go for it. Yeah, actually, Julie, I'm pretty sure you watched it, but DD5, poor Mike. Oh my gosh, that poor guy. He took his truck with a 275 gallon IBC tote on the back over to Junk to Gems, filled it up with water over there because their water is from the city. Filled it up with water from there and could not make it back home. Ended up dumping out all the water and still couldn't make it home. I felt so bad for him. I was just like, I can understand dumping part of it out. I can understand dumping half of it out, maybe. He wanted to save enough to be able to take a shower in the morning. He couldn't even get home and take a shower in the morning. What water was left, he had to take out. They might have left enough to fill the camper one time before David had to go down and tow him back. But, God, that's a terrible way to work. I felt bad for him. And then they were out with the Vibe, and the Vibe broke down. And it's like, oh, come on. Uncle David had to go save him again. That time he had to take him almost all the way into Missouri just to be able to pick up 3 goats. White Rock Homestead gave 1 goat to Gary and Melanie from, you guys know. Simple Life Reclaimed. And then 2 goats for Mike and Lessa. And they couldn't even get over to pick the goats up before the car broke down. Yeah, it comes in 3s from what I hear, Julia. So I think he's probably got 1 more. Yeah, the alternator on the Vibe has been changed. The Vibe is running again, which is good. Gary did go over and work on his truck and helped him out with that. Actually, Tim from Ridge Life helped him out with it by telling him that the coil packs won't go bad from oil because the oil cannot go into a coil pack. So it was just going around his spark plugs or whatever and burning up the plugs or whatnot. So he got everybody pointing at this on his truck, and Gary got him running again. But to me, it still doesn't sound like it's running right. And I told him, I said, once you get it running and you get it to where it's running halfway decent, even if you put a little bit of money into it, put that thing up for sale and use the money that you get from it towards a 4-wheel drive, because where you live, you need a full-size 4-wheel drive truck. Something like Uncle David has, but you don't have to go that, my truck and Uncle David's truck are exact same trucks, except for mine's older. And Uncle David hopefully never has the same problems, Mr. Warren. I'm crossing my fingers for you. Hopefully he has the never same problems that I have with mine, because it's a totally different model year. My problems I'm having with mine, White Rock broke down too. Yes, they did. They just replaced almost every part in the front of their truck. The stabilizer bar, what was it? It was a stabilizer bar, inner tie rod end, a wheel bearing, and I don't remember what the other one was. I don't remember. The pitman arms had to be changed. So they thank God they could make it over to the aunt's house and get the cousin to help them work on it. Because I'm not saying Jason isn't capable of doing it, but the cousin is much better at it. He was smart enough to count how many threads did you unthread it before you took it out and which way to turn it to. He actually had to look it up on his phone. Oh, wait, nope, this one's left-hand threaded. Okay, go the other way. but he put it back to where it started, and then he started counting his turns. So when he put the new one in, he counted the turns to get it back to where it was. Yeah, it's still going to need a front end alignment, but it's not going to be so far out that it's going to be doing a bunch of other stuff. I'm just one of them guys. I'm not a mechanic. I tell people this all the time. My boss used to laugh about it because I tell him I'm not a mechanic, and he's like, "Well, you're awful mechanically inclined." Well, I may be mechanically inclined, but I'm not a mechanic. If you want somebody that's a mechanic, there's other people that work for us in this shop that do things on their vehicles that I would never do on my own. Maybe you want to talk to them about stuff. And I pointed our other engineer, the new one, in that direction. And Bob got mad at me, and he's like, "Dave," he says, "you are very mechanically inclined." And I said, "Bob, Tom over here, he just went in and changed out the whole intake on his brand new car, and he's done this and he's done that. You won't catch me doing any of that stuff on any of my vehicles. That's what garages are for." And Bob's like, "Well, it's not that you couldn't do it. It's not that you don't have the tools to do it. It's that you just don't want to get your hands dirty." And I said, "Well, that too. Sure to God, that too." I find nothing worse in life than getting covered in grease and oil. Seriously, that's why I work with wood. I don't like getting covered in grease and oil. I have because of necessity, but other than that, I don't enjoy it. I don't like my tools being dirty. I don't like me being dirty. It's just the kind of person I am, you know. I did a head job on one of my cars. I got out of work at 6:30 at night, pulled it into my garage, hung some sleeping bags over the overhead door area because I couldn't pull it all the way in because I needed room to work. I had called home and had my girlfriend fire up the wood stove in the basement of the house really early. So when I got there, there was a nice bed of coals and keep stoking it because I'm going to keep stealing these coals. And I was taking metal cans and filling them up with these coals and placing them around in front of the garage because it was wintertime to heat that part of the garage with sleeping bags over the garage door down by the back of the car. And I worked all night long. When I finished doing that, I had just enough time to go and take a shower and get ready to go to work. And I went to pull the car out of the garage, and the gas line had broke. So now I got to climb under the car and fix the gas line. Mind you, I just changed my clothes and I just got out of the shower. Well, I was late for work that morning because once I got the gas line fixed, I had to go back in, take a shower, and change my clothes again. And when I went to work, my boss looked at me and says, "Did you sleep last night?" And I says, "No, actually I didn't." He said, "What'd you do?" And I said, "Well, that gasket blew on the car on the way to work yesterday, and I fixed it when I got home." He's like, "No way." You know, "Yeah, way." He's like, "Have you ever done it before?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, how do you know how to do it?" "I really don't. I just know what needed to be done, and I did it." And he's like, "Well, you got torque wrenches and all that in your yard or in your shop?" And I says, "No. I know if I can't turn a nut or a bolt any tighter than I've already done it, then it's tight enough. If something's leaking, then you got to get a pipe. Then you got to get the pipe out and put it on the end and try to tighten it down just a little bit more." But I didn't have any leaks. Everything was fine. Actually, I sold the car probably 2 years later, and it was still running great. So that was my way of doing it. Yeah, my dad taught me how to change the oil and the spark plugs and all kinds of stuff. But my thing is that I don't think I've changed my own oil in probably 10 years, maybe, give or take. Now, my landlord, Roger, he did change the oil in the truck that I rebuilt in his garage for a year. Because that was like a total body tear down, put back together, weld parts onto it and all that. That was a fun project. It was a money waster, but it was a fun project. I learned a lot from that. But he changed the oil. I didn't get invested in that. And he also gave it tune up and all that stuff because I didn't want to get invested in that. Hey, Dennis Green, how you doing? But yeah, like my new car. I love my new car. When the oil changes due, I just take it back to the dealership. They do the oil change. They rotate the tires. They do like a 115-point spot check on the car and then send me on my way. When the inspection is due, they inspect it for free for life of the car. oil changes, life of the car. You know, as long as I own that car, they'll do all the work on that car. And speaking of which, I do have another part that I'm going to be talking to him. It's 9 o'clock. I should be getting done, but I'm going to let it go a little over because this is kind of important. I didn't know this, but Leah and I were out driving around, and we were going by one of my old partners on buying land, his new camp. And I seen somebody out by his camp, and I didn't recognize the person, so I turned around and I pulled into his driveway. Well, apparently when I pulled into his driveway, there was a really sharp rock pointing up in the middle of it, and it was kind of rutted because he drives a truck. My car is not a truck, and it poked up into a piece of ABS plastic, and it kind of accordioned it back. I'm gonna say a good 12 inches and probably, I don't know, 13 inches wide. And when I got home, I was like, boy, I don't have to get under this car and find what's going on. That car sits so low, I didn't have a jack to get under it. So I went to one of my neighbors. I think I said this last time, I was going to go to the neighbors. But I went to one of the neighbors because he's got a lift, but unfortunately he's got a car on his lift. But he did give me a jack, so I brought it home. I jacked the car up. I looked at it thinking I was just going to drill some holes and cable tie this thing back, but there was no way. It's ABS plastic. When you shrink it up like that and accordion it, you're never going to pull it back out. Even with a heat gun under it and everything else, you're never going to be able to pull it back out. And I was just like, all right, get the multi tool, put a good blade in it, cut that piece right off so it's flush, take the jack back to the guy and thank him for the use of it. And next time I take it in for an oil change, I'll tell him what happened. I think it's covered under my warranty, to be honest with you. I think everything on this car is covered because I have guaranteed trade-in on this car. It cost me $600 or something like that more for guaranteed trade-in, but they'll cover any scratches, any dings, any this, any that. And I do have scratches. I've got some pretty deep scratches on the driver's side back where I parked it at Walmart next to a cart corral. And some idiot, rather than putting their cart back into the corral, they just winged it across the parking lot and wedged it between my car and the corral. And either as it was going in or as I was pulling it back out, it scratched the crap out of the side of the car. It's noticeable to me because it's my car. It's brand new. It's not so noticeable to anybody else. But hopefully when I take it back to the dealership, they'll go in and they'll sand that scratches down and do whatever they got to do while it's there. I don't care if I'm there all day long. You know, I mean, for me, it's a 3-hour drive, I think, to take it back to the dealership. It's way up by Atasha Dauber's house. So yeah, it's about a good 2.5, 3-hour drive, but I don't care. You know, I'll leave first thing in the morning, and if I don't get back till dark, hey, so be it. I get back at dark. It's not going to hurt my feelings any. Fix it, make it look right. Part of that insurance was if somebody pushes a cart up against your car and dings your car, they will fix that down. So I'm hoping that they'll fix these scratches. It's the same issue. It's just a different scenario, I guess. All right, well, guys, it is now after 9 o'clock at night. Gillum Family Farms, I believe, is on with Johnny and Christine. I'm going to call this one tonight, and I'm glad you all joined me, and I'll see you on the next one next Saturday night. Everybody have a good weekend. Catch you later.